A kimono is more than a beautiful piece of clothing. Each fold, each tie, and accessory carries a cultural meaning. Certified kimono dressers often study for years and need to pass rigorous exams to master this craft. Today, I'm stepping into the world of kimono dressing, this intricate art that combines precision, tradition, and beauty. With the help of a professional, today I learned what it takes to become a kimono dresser.
いらっしゃいませ. Welcome to Mainichi Kimono. It's nice to meet you all. My name is Christina Fujikake. I've been running my business, Mainichi Kimono, for about 3 years this July. We're going to be spending the day with Sabrina, and I'm going to be dressing her in kimono and doing something called Hatsumode, which is the first shrine visit of the year. So come on! Let's go. They say about 90% of Japanese people born and raised in Japan don't know how to put on kimono by themselves. And the same goes for Japanese Americans, whether they are mixed like me or they are 100% Japanese, but maybe generations of Japanese Americans or Japanese Canadians, New Zealanders. And kimono is a very important way of getting in touch with heritage. When we touch a garment that belonged to our grandparents or even our parents, or something that was given to us as a gift when we were children. These things are touchstones in our cultural experience. The first kimono I received from my own grandmother was such a kind gesture. This is my current collection of kimono. I do have more tucked away somewhere, but these are the ones I primarily use with clients. Most of them are secondhand. Some of them have been donated to me. Sometimes when people move, they leave behind a lot of kimono. And since a lot of them are donations, I get very interesting patterns sometimes. These are all authentic kimono, with the exception of anything that is plus size, as back then we didn't really have plus size kimono, and the market for plus size kimono requires mainly new kimono being made. This is a furisode. For unmarried women, furisode is the most formal form of kimono that you can wear. In the past, actually, the pattern stopped here because once the woman got married, they would cut the sleeve. More modern furisode, they don't do this as much, so you'll see the furisode with the pattern all over it. So you can actually tell how old a furisode is, so to speak, based on if they're continuing this tradition or not. This one is vintage, probably from like the 70s. Not every kimono I have is silk, because in traditional Japanese culture, not all kimono were silk. Kimono were made out of wool, out of linen. We've got cotton kimono. I'm sure you've heard of them. They're called yukata. This is a yukata, and it's definitely a newer pattern. This one too, I mean, it has glitter. It's kind of a giveaway that it's not so vintage. This type of kimono, where you see it is translucent, this is summer kimono. So a lot of people think that only yukata is summer kimono, and that's not true. We do have special kimono for summer. This way of weaving silk is called ro, and it's always translucent. And even the nagajuban underneath is woven the same way. I also have some haori, the kimono jackets. This one is a coat instead of just a haori. Could be raincoat, could be whatever. This is how cheap this is. This was 2,200. So if you want a kimono, secondhand is where to go get kimono, because they really are very cheap, because we have so many kimono. I named my kimono business Mainichi Kimono, with Mainichi meaning every day, because my goal is to have kimono become an everyday thing again. So I began my kimono journey in the very beginning of the pandemic. There are multiple kimono schools and kimono organizations in Japan. I went with one here in Osaka, which tends to make people in Kyoto confused. Of course, Osaka is quite close to Kyoto, but I wanted to stay here and it worked best with my schedule. There were 3 ranks in my kimono school. Rank 3 is the lowest, and then rank 1 is the highest. The exam for the first level, we had to put on a normal kimono and do taiko musubi, the drum knot, in 15 minutes. I had a panel of 7 judges, and I was in a room with my classmates, and they watched a few things, of course, like did we do it correctly? Very, very, very picky. And in my particular school, we're not allowed to look at a mirror. Other kimono schools have different rules. The idea is that people didn't have mirrors back then, or perhaps they only had access to like a hand mirror, and maybe they didn't have a freestanding mirror that could show the whole body. As a result, we are not allowed to look at a mirror until we can do the final check to just make sure everything is okay. So I'm kind of used to just dressing myself. And that's a good thing because when we look at the mirror, we tend to look down a lot, and the more you look down, the more the collar shifts. So you have to feel everything that you're doing. The second level, my exam was on tomesode, and tomesode is the most formal kimono for a married woman. They're usually all black, and the very intricate, delicate pattern is at the very bottom of the kimono. They're very thick and they're very heavy. Even though we don't have the chance to usually dress people in such kimono, it's for the sake of formality and education we continue to observe those rules. My final exam was quite tough. I had to put on a tomesode again, but this time instead of 15 minutes, I had 12 minutes. We had to dress someone else in furisode, the very long sleeve kimono, and there were 4 knots that we could potentially be asked to do with the obi. So we had to practice all 4. That was really nerve-wracking, especially because in kimono school, we don't really have the chance, at least my kimono school, we don't have the chance to dress people very often besides ourselves. We usually work on mannequins, so like the kimono behind me, that's on a professional mannequin that's built specifically for kimono because kimono is very heavy. My first mannequin I ever used, I couldn't afford that one because I just started out. It slowly began to fall over time. Okay, well, shall we get started and get you dressed?
Yes.
Today we're going to be dressing you in a furisode kimono.
Okay.
Question for you is, have you worn kimono before?
I lived in Japan for about a year, and I had 6 host families. Actually, my last host family, they brought me to Kyoto, and this is where I've actually worn my first kimono ever. I also worn the yukata. With my body type, I remember back then, it was kind of hard for them to find the right size because I've got hips, I've got a breast, so which is not the typical Japanese shape. So in the end, it didn't look as pretty as it should have been. So I hope that we can change that today.
I'm used to many different types of body shapes. Things have probably changed since then because now we have so many foreigners coming into Japan. Depending on the rental shop and the person's qualifications, they will be able to accommodate body size. In my kimono school, we are taught that. A lot of people who are trained to do kimono for rental shops, they don't learn as much details for how to handle a different body type. They're very used to the typical East Asian up and down shape. In kimono, ideally, the idea is that we're supposed to have a cylinder, a long cylinder shape. And so we use padding and whatnot to make sure that everything is as flat
as possible.
Yes.
I see.
What I'm wearing today is a nod to the Taisho era, which is my personal favorite because I'm in love with all things Victorian. And the Taisho era saw a big influence from the end of the Victorian era and a mix of traditional Japanese and Western styles. And being mixed Western and Japanese, I'm always yay with the Taisho aesthetic and just Taisho roman, dramas and everything. If you watch Kimetsu no Yaiba, you know exactly what I'm talking about because that is set in the Taisho roman area. One of the most frequent questions that I get asked, and this is something that I do want to talk about because I don't think people on YouTube have, in my opinion, properly discuss this. Can I wear kimono? I'm not a Japanese person. And I'm not like you, who's mixed Japanese and living in Japan and obviously trained by Japanese folks. I'm gonna do my best to explain this from all points of view. Fortunately, I can't make that decision for you. There are Japanese diaspora who are going to not like it. And it's because, and this is an experience I've had myself, people outside of Japan don't have the respect for kimono that Japanese people in Japan do. Japanese people in Japan are, of course, very happy, and that's where a lot of people tend to just end the discussion. Japanese people in Japan like it, so forget what anyone else thinks. But Japanese diaspora like me, if we tend to wear traditional clothing outside of the country of origin, you can get really mixed reactions, and not all of them are positive. And this is an experience that in Japan, I'm never gonna have that. Nobody in Japan who's from Japan is gonna look at me and think that I shouldn't be wearing that. Anyone will tell you that most Japanese folks are very happy to see foreigners, love Japan and love Japanese culture. Again, I'm not gonna tell anyone what to do. I don't think that's my right. I don't think I have the power to say that. But I do think it's important to understand other people's feelings and to make the decision yourself. This is the first layer that's gonna go above basically your underwear and whatnot. So we're gonna put this on. Go ahead and put your hands through here. So we fold this, kind of make a longer one. Needs to be stiff. This makes sure that it stays. So the cord, this kind of cord always goes through this sleeve.
Okay.
Makes it easier. Let's back a little bit. And then need this. Let's go over the nagajuban. This we tuck it. Kimono is all about tucking and hiding. Because there's so many parts and layers. So now we're in the nagajuban, and so what we want to do is we want to make sure that the fabric of the kimono doesn't actually touch the skin at all. The best way to go about this is to have the stiff erishin here that prevents the kimono from, again, touching the neck. If you've looked at geisha or photos of geisha, you'll notice that theirs is way lower because they have more neck showing, but in this case, we're just doing a normal person's kimono today. Now, for the fun part, the kimono. The most rewarding thing I think about doing kimono is making people feel beautiful, which sounds very cliche, but it's true, especially if the person has Japanese ancestry. I want them to feel at home in kimono. It can be very scary in some ways because it's obviously a garment that people are not used to wearing most of the time, and I really want to have kimono be approachable. At the moment, in Japanese society, the times I tend to have clients is very different from when I have Western clients or even clients from other Asian countries. Those people are here on vacation, so maybe they want to have photos with the cherry blossoms, maybe they want to have photos with the maple leaves, because of course autumn and spring in Japan are extremely beautiful. So a lot of Japanese, they tend to request my services when it's time to graduate. The kimono and the hakama is usually a thing worn for graduation ceremonies for high school and for university. Seeing the look on their faces when they feel they've transformed into something beautiful or traditional is an amazing feeling. Let's put the kimono on. Arm through.
Just give me a second.
Sometimes nagajuban sleeves don't come in through, so we're gonna have to pull this. Shake it off, shake it off. There we go. The furisore are extremely heavy, so we need to put the largest clip, like this, onto the very back. We're gonna line up the seam and put it right here. And with the next one, same thing, except just below here. And on the other side, and that's set up. And now we can proceed with the rest of the furisore dressing. Okay, next we're gonna get the himo. So usually when we dress in kimono, it is helpful to be wearing kimono yourself when you're doing dressing because you can take things that you need and put them right in your sleeves. So we have a fuller figure we're working with today. So because we have a fuller figure, we don't want to do the normal way because as you can see, the pattern doesn't quite fit. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move a little bit this way and then like this. So for this, we have to be as tight as possible. The thumbs are the guides in the back. A lot of kimono is tucking and hiding things. Just want as little of this showing as possible. Now we need to make the ohashori. And we can do this to make it more. So this is a trick that I learned, not in kimono school, but by another dresser, like a senpai of mine. So usually, if you go to rental places, they're gonna go the whole thing outside. Now we want at least one of these to be as stationary as possible. That makes it easier to make sure the whole thing stays together and it's easier to make adjustments. We take this, we position this where we want it to go. We lay this flat, and then we reach in, the sodeguchi, and we pull that through. This makes it much easier.
It's getting tight.
Yeah. Now the reason why we like this is because we can still make adjustments. So this can be fixed before it's too late.
Because once you do that, it's too late?
It's done, yeah.
Oh,
once it's tied, it's tied. And there's nothing you can do. Excuse part of my reach.
It's okay. Have you dressed up like men's for kimonos?
Yes.
Yeah?
For sure.
Is the process like different?
It's so much easier.
Really?
It's way...
How easy is it?
It takes like maybe a quarter of the time.
Really?
Men's kimono is way easier because they only tie down here, they don't need up here. And the knot is way simpler. And the thing that keeps the obi flat, we don't have to worry about that because men have the obi down here.
Oh, it's
and it's a soft obi and it doesn't need to be flattened or anything. And the knot is usually not as intricate. So it's
Oh, I see.
It's so much easier. Men's kimono doesn't have the ohashori, this. It's just straight down.
You've learned this technique from another kimono dresser.
Yes.
How is the community within each other, and how do you find them?
It depends on where you're at and who you're talking to. Osaka, I noticed, is like extremely friendly.
Why not that?
All right, last up. So this thing, when we have the obi, it makes sure that it doesn't wrinkle. Now comes the obi. Different kimono and different obi are ranked by formality. So for example, let me pull out this one. So this is a fukuro obi, and this is the second most formal. So as you can see, the pattern is not on the entire obi. So we would wear this with furisode, or we would wear this with tomesode. And also here you can see that the pattern stops here. This part you're not gonna see because in the back it will be tied. And you can tell I use this one often enough because it's already kind of bent. I would not put this with yukata. It's too formal for yukata, A, and B, it's very thick. So if you put this with yukata, you're gonna sweat. For the most formal, we have something called maru obi, which looks very similar to fukuro obi. It's just that the whole obi has that pattern. This one's one of my favorites. It's very much so a new one. This is hanhaba obi, and it's called this way because it's half size and it's very flexible. You can use this with both yukata and a more informal, such as a komon kimono. I found this in Asakusa, and that's actually a really fun way that a lot of people use these days to make their kimono more personalized. So this, as you can see, it has things like this. And this is to hang it on your back. So if you've ever bought a yukata from a department store, like a whole package yukata, you've probably seen the bow with something like this to hook into the obi, because the obi is separate. This makes it much more accessible. Of course, in kimono school, we never would use this.
Okay, what have you chosen for me?
We are using a fukuro obi. And as I mentioned earlier, the fukuro obi, it's the second most formal obi. And let me flip it because there's more pattern. So as you can see here, the pattern ends. That's how you know it's a fukuro obi. This part that doesn't have pattern, the reason why it doesn't have patterns is going to be hidden.
Okay.
We're going to be using this part to do most of the tying in the back. And then the part of the obi that you see is going to be actually shown. So we fold this in half to make it easier. And once we run into pattern, typically that's when we stop. Honestly, the most challenging part is, hilariously enough, remembering the different knots that we use. Because for yukata, we're gonna have one knot. And then if someone wants to wear furisode, it depends on what type of knot they're looking for. So if you need to look at a reference, please don't worry, the professionals do too. I always practice and there's no shame in it. So if you are interested in kimono as a hobby and you want to learn how to tie obi knots, whether you're doing a yukata for a local festival or you've come here to Japan and you just want to do it yourself and you need to check a reference, don't worry. Even professional stylists have to review from time to time. So we make kind of a triangle, and this is going to keep things straight. I'm gonna roll you like a sushi now. Now in the back, what we're gonna do is we're gonna move this over just a little bit. This is gonna curl up the tie, and then this will come in through here. We're gonna pull it up, and then we shikari. So the next thing we're gonna do is we have what's called a triple himo. So it's triple because the 3 parts, as you can see. And then like I said, kimono, there's so much about hiding everything. So now this is where the magic happens. We're gonna make little mountains very far back. Pull this in, and then this part right here is gonna act like a base later. And now this, we want this to be, and we're gonna make another mountain. I'm gonna pull this through again. Like I said, it looks like a mess at first. And we're gonna keep making more mountains. It's less complicated than it looks. Now we want this to have a good base. So because we want this to have a good base, we're gonna use a little bit of a pillow. And that pillow's over here. So we're gonna pull this up here. This doesn't have to be super elegant because we're gonna hide it. With furisode, we can keep this straight. We don't have to tie it in the middle, which really does make it easier. Tuck that in. So it looks like it's all one thing. And the final touch, this is just for extra decoration. You don't actually need it, but it looks pretty to have something in the middle.
This has straightened my back. I feel like
you got great posture now. And then here comes the real magic. We just spread it like a bird spreading its wings. And then this one, this final one, also to stick out on this side. And that's it, we're finished.
Oh wow! This is beautiful. I wish I could see the whole view like completely, but it looks absolutely stunning. Now that I have this beautiful kimono on me, I think we should go take some pictures. And for that, the best place to go is to go to a shrine.
I do not have my license in hair. I don't charge for hair, just so you know, because I'm still learning.
So there's also a license for the hair?
A lot of people will get formal training in hair.
Oh.
And that is on my list of things to do this year. I've had clients who wanted certain styles done that rental shops do that I have not learned yet because it's not traditionally done in kimono. I want to learn more of what's trending and what's fashionable beyond just the traditional atmosphere that I tend to have at kimono school, which again is focused on preserving the more classic culture. But I think it's important, especially today, to know both. It's just, I'm not there yet, so. Like some schools offer hair training, some don't. Mine does when you learn bridal. Bridal is a completely different beast.
That's true.
If in Japan, if it exists, there's a school for it.
Interesting.
Like, or certification. Okay, here we go.
Look. Wow, that's cute. We actually need to hurry because the sun is going down and we still want to take some photos with the kimono while we have the golden hour. So we are trying to rush, and thankfully there is a shrine not far from here, so we're heading there now. What advice would you give to someone who's interested in learning the art of kimono dressing?
Unfortunately, the first bit of advice is the one thing no one wants to hear, and that's learn Japanese. At my school, I got very lucky. I had one teacher who did speak English. That was only good because even though I did go to Japanese school when I was younger, I didn't know a lot of the words for kimono. And so because we have those words, it was really good to have someone who could explain what they were if I didn't quite understand. But if you don't know any Japanese at all, it's really difficult regardless because, you know, that teacher wasn't always there. The second thing is you're gonna need to know basic sewing, at least from my school. So I was really shocked that my very first lesson of kimono school was please bring towels and having to sew them. The last thing, don't be afraid to make mistakes, but just keep it up and eventually you will go farther than you think if you're willing to practice and to try.
All right, that wraps up a day as a kimono dresser. Christina-san, thank you so much for today. I think we've all learned a lot about kimono dressing. It is definitely more complex than I thought. We can clearly see that you truly love what you're doing, and I found this amazing. If you want to book a session with Christina-san, I'll be more than happy to leave everything in the description below.
You can find me at mainichikimono.com or on my Instagram, which is also Mainichi Kimono.
So you also mentioned that you were also a Miko-san.
Yes, I'm a Shinto shrine maiden.
And actually, we will be also following once again Christina, and this time we will be learning how to become a shrine maiden. Make sure to stick around. In the meantime, guys, if you like this kind of content, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. If you want to see more of the backstage of today's shooting, you can follow me on Instagram. And if you would like to support the channel, you can always buy me coffee because, as you know, I have quit my job and now I'm only surviving off YouTube revenues. Everything is in the description. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!